G'day guys, just here in the workshop getting some preparation done for tomorrow night's event. I'm getting it done tonight because tomorrow I'm going to be on a pretty tight schedule. I don't finish work till 12 and I need to get out of here at about 1, 2 o'clock. So I'm going to get it all done tonight, that way I don't have to worry about doing it tomorrow. Not really a lot that needs to be done. I just need to give the car a quick check over, screw the side skirts back on and load up the tyres and tools. Tomorrow night will be D1WA's third event for the year. It will be my second event. Unfortunately, I had to miss the last one. I'm pretty pumped for this one because, unlike last event, I've actually got power steering in the car now, which means I'm going to have a lot more control over the car. I've had a look at the layout for this one, which I'll show you guys in a sec. It is a lot more complex than what the last one was, so it's probably going to be a little bit sketchy. There's a few corners there that I'm not quite sure how we're going to go, but thankfully I've got power steering this time, so I should be able to fudge my way through it. So some of you are probably wondering why it would be so difficult to handle a drift car without power steering. So I'll do my best to explain it. So I got a better idea, I'll show you why. Hang on, I've got to get this thing out of the way. Where is it? There it is. This is what I'll be using to show you why it's so hard to drift without power steering. Right. How am I going to do this? Probably what we need is some sort of corner. So if we got some masking tape, get out of the hand, put the camera down for a sec, and that doesn't work. Hello. Alright, so we've got more or less a corner. Now, this little RC car's not really set up for drift, so I can't really get much gangster angle into it, but it'll give you an idea. Alright, so it's like this. I'll keep this simple just for the sake of keeping things simple and easy to understand. When a car drifts through a corner, you've got two major forces happening on the back of the car. You've got one pushing from the back, pushing the car forward, and then you've got one pushing from the side. As the car is drifting around a corner, it's pivoting on that leading wheel as it goes around the corner. It's a bit of a weird concept to understand, but imagine putting a bolt or a pin through that leading wheel and moving the car about that pivot. That's what's happening as you go through the corner. Now, the reason why you need power steering here is because you've got that old rule of physics where every action has an equal and opposite reaction. As the car is drifting through the corner, you've got that force pushing the back of the car outwards, and what's happening at the same time is the steering is getting forced in the other direction. In this example, the car is drifting through a left-hand corner, so the force on the back of the car is pushing the back out to the right, which means the steering is getting forced to the left. Bit of a weird concept because the wheels are actually turned to the right, but the force is pushing left. On this sort of scale, it doesn't seem like much, but in a real car, the force that's getting applied to that steering is far more than what you'll ever be able to correct with your own two arms. That's why you need power steering. There's also other forces at play here, things like your front suspension, geometry, caster and camber angles. They actually multiply the issue. They make it a lot worse when you build a drift car because you've got such gangster camber and caster angles. It actually makes that force on the steering twice as much. So you will never ever be able to correct your steering without power steering. So if you don't have power steering on your car, you've got absolutely no chance of making any mid-corner corrections, which you will need to do. It's absolutely impossible to try and drift the car on throttle alone, as I've learnt. But anyway, enough playing with toy cars, let's go play with a real one.
テージ持っていくでしょう。これでいいんでしょ、土屋さん。あの横にこれ、ずっとついていく方が難しいんですよ。これは難しい。はい。6-4。アドバンテージ、川端持っていきました。さあ、今この両者がスタート地点に戻りました。入れ替えてサドンデスの2本目ということになります。川端正人が前、そして斉藤大吾が後ろから追い上げる。先ほどはオーバーテイクドリを見せた。さあ、今度はどういうこと。
なんか古着屋さんにめっちゃ当たる占い師さんがいてはったんですよ。でそれ全然知らずに私は普通にもう古着好きやしこう見てたら後ろからその人が「さんま」って言ったんですよ。でえって振り返ったら「えさんま」って。いや私ほら顔も似てたから
ちょっと出てるしね
出てるし似てるからでよく似てるって言われますねんって言われますって言ったら「違うのさんまさんと結婚する」マジですか？うん、あなたね必ずさんまさんと結婚するよって言われたの。それをさんまにドラマかなんかで一緒になって「いやこの間ねよう当たるうなぎさんにね突然もうさんま兄さんと結婚する言われたんですよ」言ってそんな。
That was pretty much where my night ended. Well, it didn't end there. I still hung around for a couple of hours to check out the action, but that was pretty much the end of the driving for the night. That last run was going pretty sweet until that last corner. Pepper decided she wanted to throw all her shit out of the pram and stop working. So as you saw, as I come out of the gate and pulled off to the right there, she just wouldn't run at all. It was running a bit like the airflow meter was unplugged. Checked that, it wasn't that. I thought maybe the plugs had fouled up, because it does that quite a lot. It fouls up plugs because it runs too rich. I pulled the plugs out. The plugs were pretty nasty, but changed them out and it still didn't make a difference. And I'm standing there looking at the engine, listening to it run, and I'm like, I've come across this before, I know what this is. And there's that voice in the back of my head saying, unmetered air, it's unmetered air. And I'm just like saying to myself, no way, it's not that. Because when I put the power steering in, I made sure everything was all clamped up good. So I flicked my eyes around it anyway, just to have a quick look, but it was fairly dark there and I couldn't see much. Yeah, as it turns out, I should have looked a little bit harder, because I came out tonight to try and fix the problem, and as soon as I popped the bonnet, I spotted instantly what the problem was. All it was that intercooler pipe there had popped out of the sleeve, and it was sucking air, unneeded air. So at least it was a quick and easy problem to fix, nothing too drastic. I'm just spewing because if I had have just looked a little bit closer at the car, I would have been able to get a good another 20 or 30 runs in that night. But hey, these things happen. Before I go out on the track again, there is a few things I need to sort out though. The power steering has also got a bit of a leak on the main pressure line, so I'll have to sort that out. It's not too bad, but I'd say by the end of the night I'm probably going to end up running out of power steering fluid, so I need to fix that up. Also, the scrutineer wasn't too happy about the way my seat was mounted, which is understandable because it is a left-hand seat modified for the right-hand side. All I did was make up some dodgy brackets to make it work. The scrutineer was nice enough to let it go for that night, but I will need to put a proper seat in it for next time. Also, now that I've got power steering in the car and can make proper steering corrections, I've noticed that at the end of the steering rack throw, there's a lot of movement, and that's because the caster rod bushes at the front are all flogged out, and the caster rod is moving side to side a lot. It doesn't seem to be affecting the handling of the car too much, but when you get to full lock, the hubs hit the lock stops on the lower control arms, and because the rack has just that extra little throw in it than what the steering does, it actually pulls the suspension front and back when you go lock to lock, and you actually feel it through the steering. You feel it touch and then it goes a little bit more, and when you go just that little bit more, it does unsettle the car a little bit, so I will need to sort that out for sure. But now that I've actually got some functional steering in the car, I can get a better feel for the way the car reacts and handles. Overall, it feels pretty good. I can't say I've got any basis for comparison because this is the first drift car that I've built and it's the first time I've been drifting, so I don't really know how it's supposed to drive. Overall, I'd say the car is pretty reactive. It's a little bit short on power down low, but I'd expect that from an RB20 because they need to rev to make the horsepower, so you really need to keep it on boil all the time. But apart from that, the steering and suspension feels pretty reactive, and it seems to be pretty planted and predictable. But I have noticed that it's got a habit to snap the back out, depending on the speed and angle at which I'm going through a corner. I think that's probably mostly me, because I haven't quite got used to the car yet, because there is just naturally going to be only a certain amount of angle and speed that I can push the car through a corner, so I need to learn what that is. But overall, I'm pretty confident in the way the car handles, so I'd say for now it's probably going to serve me well. I just need to get used to it a little bit more. I did say before that I was going to show you the layout that they were going to do, but as it turns out they did change it up a little bit. This is how it used to look like. And this is how it looks now. This here is my quality drawing, obviously not to scale or anywhere near like what it actually was, but you get a pretty good idea. If you've never been to Barbagallo's before, that is the infield where they park all the team trucks for all the V8 supercars and stuff like that. That there is all the pit workshops, and you got the pit lane going down the side with the track going around it. Doing all the drifting on the infield is actually pretty cool because on top of the pit bay, you've actually got a spectator area. There's a bridge that goes back to the main pits and car park and all that sort of jazz. But basically, you're standing on top of all the pit workshops, so you get a bird's eye view of everything that's going on in that infield. it is actually really good to watch it from up there. So this is pretty much how it went. On the left was lead, on the right was chase. Now I'll just quickly say, as a learner driver, you're always better off going chase to start with, because going chase, you don't have anyone behind you, so if you do spin out, you're not going to get in anyone's way. But as it turns out, a lot of the guys down there have actually been doing this a lot more than what I have, and they kept going chase, and the reason is because going chase is a lot more interesting for a driver. It gives you something more to do. Lead is boring because all you're doing is following yourself around the track, whereas you're going chase, you've always got an opportunity to get right on someone's door, and it's, for a driver, it's a lot of fun. I'm not quite up there yet, that's not where my skill is just yet, but that'll come later on. So with this layout, there was two key features. The first corner was actually square, and same with the second one, and then the last three were just some simple curve transitions. I didn't quite draw it right on this. That third corner through here was a little bit tight, but these last two ended up curving right out, so you could get some huge speed coming out of it. So come off the start line with as much speed as you can, because when you get to this first corner, you're going to want a lot of speed. Because it was squared off, means you had to flick it in hard and basically take that whole corner with some huge angle and just drag it all the way through and back out into the second corner, pretty much repeating the same trick on that corner as well. The second corner wasn't too bad, it was a bit narrower, but that first one was a doozy, especially for guys like me with some stock lock and not a lot of skill. Basically the way I had to do it was basically just cruise on into this first corner, never mind that first clip. They had two clips there, which was a little interesting. So come in nice and cruisy, find my line, and then once I found my line, I could pop the clutch or rip the handbrake. Sometimes I did both. Flick the back end out and shoot it through, cutting close to that clip, and then transition up and come back around and do the same thing, cutting close to that clip. Didn't work, span out twice on that corner. That corner was probably the worst place I could have done it, because that was right in front of the crowd doing that. So embarrassing. But from that point on was pretty much self-explanatory. You just transition through the corners, let the car float on its own pretty much, and then straight back out again. As a driver, I found this one a little bit daunting, especially on these first two corners, because I didn't quite know how to tackle it. In future, I would like to revisit this once I've got a bit more skill and some more lock in the car. So yeah, anyway, that's that. So yeah, overall, I'd say the night went pretty well. I was a little bit gutted that it sort of ended the way it did from my own stupidity, but that's how the game is. You win some, you lose some. So taking away from the night, I think I've got a little bit to learn as a driver with my steering and clutch timing. I was either a little too late or a little too early with either. Handbraking is a bit of a non-issue because you sort of just feel that out with the corners. You know when to pull it and when to not, so that doesn't matter too much. I do need to develop my left foot braking, especially if I want to start doing trains and start getting this thing producing a lot of smoke. I am going to need to ride that left foot brake a lot, which I didn't do at all that night. The only time my foot touched the brake was when I actually needed to stop, so that's something I need to work on. So yeah, I got things to work on, not only on myself but on the car. It's all about learning and progressing. So that being said, I'm done here for now. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook. Keep it real, guys. Pleb up, blaze on.